At my son's wedding, my daughter-in-law threw wine in my face, revealing a shocking family secret. The room fell silent, the laughter of moments ago now a distant echo, replaced by gasps of disbelief that ricocheted off the walls. Crimson stained my shirt, hot and searing. My heart raced, emotions churning in chaotic waves. I was Jack Thompson, a humble science teacher in a small town, and yet here I stood, the center of an uproar that felt unfathomable. It had taken me years to build a life defined by loyalty and hard work. For over 2 decades, I had dedicated my life to my students, believing that the real qualifications for success rested in their growth. Yet my son's fancy wedding, adorned with opulence and sophistication, felt like a stark contrast to my plain existence. Emily, my daughter-in-law, represented everything I was not born into: privilege and polished with a grandeur that made my background seem like a faded photograph, something to be embarrassed about. As I stood there, grappling with disbelief and humiliation, I could hear the whispers growing. What happened? Why would she do that? Each murmur shot through me like an arrow, digging deeper into a festering worry. Was I good enough to stand beside Emily, who seemed designed for a life so far removed from my own? Yet the fury behind that glass of wine was not merely about me. It was a culmination of unvoiced tensions that had rippled through the evening like an undertow. I recalled the subtle jabs she delivered a few moments prior, her quips about the worn-out faculty lounge at my high school, the way she smiled when my colleagues mentioned their own advanced degrees and accolades. Did she think me a joke? A mere footnote in her glittering life story? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That moment of clarity shattered as anxiety clawed back, forcing me to confront everything I had built. Suddenly, a shadow swept over my thoughts, revealing a family secret I never saw coming. What if my life's narrative wasn't as straightforward as I believed? What if my late mother, whom I adored, was a hidden descendant of an influential line? The implications spun like a malicious tornado. Would accepting this lineage mean abandoning my principles of authenticity? I feared the loss of identity, the possible betrayal of my own teachings, integrity, hard work, grit. As the room's attention pivoted toward me, I could feel every gaze weighing down. I wrestled with the thought that maybe my life hadn't been about mere sacrifices but a denial of heritage. In that raw, grazed moment before Emily could speak, I trembled under the scrutiny of my own thoughts. Would I let this revelation rewrite my legacy? The heat in my chest swelled as my muscles tensed, participatory in the chaos. Was there a way to embrace Emily's revelation and keep who I was intact? With every heart-stopping second, the room pricked my skin, and I stood a father on the brink of losing connection and identity, caught in the clutches of a secret that had the potential to unmoor everything I had ever known. Would I sink into despair or claw my way back to the surface? As Emily stepped forward, fury flickering in her eyes, I braced for more than just words. I readied myself for a tempest that could either engulf or enlighten. The question loomed large: would this moment redefine us, or would it crack our family apart? I stood frozen, my thoughts racing faster than my beating heart. As Emily moved toward me, her posture radiated indignation, and I sensed the energy in the room shift from shock to anticipation. This was no longer just a wedding filled with joy, it had morphed into a battleground. I felt disconnected from my own body, a silent observer caught in a whirlwind of emotions. "Jack," Emily began, her voice quivering apprehensively. The crowd leaned in, as if drawn to the edge of an invisible cord, waiting for what was to come next. "You deserve to know the truth about your family." Her words struck a chord deep within, a mixture of dread and stubborn curiosity igniting within me. It forced me to confront the concern I had suppressed. Was I ready to unearth secrets that could fundamentally alter my identity? I needed composure, a steady ground from which to launch my response. However, the internal battle of Jack swiftly escalated. On one hand, was the rational educator who pushed his students to seek knowledge, and on the other, a man besieged by fear of potentially vulnerable truths about the lineage I clung to like a life raft. What truth are you referring to? My voice came out steadier than I felt, echoing a calmness I had yet to find within. Emily's eyes glinted with a mix of defiance and resolve. You think you're just a middle-class science teacher. But what if your mother was tied to something greater? What if you come from a line of influential people, hidden away to deny you a legacy? Each revelation she spoke bore the weight of an anchor, heavy and unyielding in my chest. Did she truly believe that claiming a lineage of privilege could alter the hard-earned integrity I had nurtured? But as the notion took root within me, another part whispered that perhaps there was more to my identity than the scrappy image I had painted through sheer survival. The whispers around the room grew louder, painting a vivid backdrop of curiosity and judgment. Unfamiliar resentments danced beneath the surface. What lineage? I pressed, the vulnerability in my voice clashing with my desire to protect my life's work. Emily took a deep breath, preparing herself to draw back the curtain, unveiling a narrative I had unwittingly ignored. People marveled at her confidence, yet I felt a profound personal loss creeping in. If she spoke the truth, would my life's fabric start to unravel? I remembered my mother's stories told through weary breaths, her dignity woven into every lesson she shared, the pride she held in her modest upbringing. Was that the legacy I wanted to uphold, or one bound to a new identity I hadn't earned? Jack, your mother made sacrifices to give you a normal life. In doing so, she concealed the past. You've been living a lie, and I think it's time you embrace the truth. The low swell of shock transitioned into open curiosity, threading the air with collective anticipation. Sweat beaded along my brow as my world spun slightly off its axis. The truth stared back at me. It was a mirror reflecting possibilities I had avoided, and yet, the harshness of my existence felt like a shield against the unknown. Could I honor the man I became while exploring this revelation? What did it mean to honor one lineage while confronting another? I met Emily's fiery gaze, a mix of challenge and sincerity brewing. The pressure inside me coiled tightly, filled with dread but also burgeoning strength. It was time to confront this uncertainty, to resist the fear of what lay beyond the comforts of my constructed reality. With a deep exhale, I realized that the moment of reckoning had arrived. The foundation of everything I had believed might crumble around me, and yet, the thought of having the opportunity to redefine my existence intrigued me. I looked around at the witnesses of this family controversy. What did they think of the secret unfurling before them? Realization surged through me. It was my choice now. But was I ready to take the plunge into this hidden part of my identity? The tension crackled in the air, leaving me suspended between familiarity and the unknown. As Emily stood waiting, the question hung like a tempest. How could I merge the man I was with the legacy I never knew existed? In that charged atmosphere, it became painfully clear that this unveiling would dictate not just the course of my life but the very fabric of our family. The truth beckoned, but the question remained. Would I seize it or let it slip away? The room seemed to hold its breath, an electrifying pause as all eyes focused on me, a silent jury assessing my next move. Time slowed, and I felt every second stretch taut with anticipation. Each whisper reverberated like a drumbeat, a reminder that I was not merely a spectator in my own life, but a central figure in a narrative fraying at the seams. Emily's stare was unwavering, challenging me to respond, to step beyond the shadows of a life built on half-truths. I felt the conflicting pieces within me war for dominance. The rational educator within me urged careful deliberation. Any wisdom gleaned from years of teaching could prepare me to navigate this fallout. But the man within, the survivor, shaped by hardship and resilience, felt an insistent pull towards something raw, a reckless curiosity that threatened to shatter the carefully constructed mold I had already fitted myself into. Emily, I began, my voice more assertive, perhaps more desperate than intended. What exactly are you suggesting? That I abandon everything I know? My mother's life wasn't a lie. It was the foundation of who I am. My words hung in the air, desperate and defiant, as if articulating them might provide the clarity I was yearning for. That foundation, Jack, might just be hiding the strength of a legacy you deserve to claim, she replied, a blend of passion and earnestness shimmering in her tone. You could redefine what your life means. You don't have to just be what was handed to you. The duality of her argument struck me hard. Could it be possible? Could this revelation piece together fragments of a self that felt perpetually incomplete? The thought stirred something within me, a simmering conviction that I had starved my potential for too long, shackled by a narrative that, while noble, might not be all there was. Standing amidst an audience, friends, family, strangers, I could feel an almost tangible energy, a current electrifying the air. My heart raced, my palms dampened with uncertainty. As I caught glimpses of doubt and intrigue reflected in their faces, emboldened, I shifted the conversation. If there is truth to what you say, what does it mean for me? I've built my life around the very values my mother instilled in me. Is power worth sacrificing authenticity? What legacy am I meant to uphold? Emily's conviction was matched only by the weight of the decision I faced. It lay heavy in the pit of my stomach. What was my identity built upon, worthwhile struggle or an unclaimed heritage? Each consideration felt like a scalpel dissecting my intentions, compelling me to confront the pragmatic choice of how far I was willing to delve into the unknown. Living a duality does not mean losing yourself, she insisted. You can weave your past with whatever new truths emerge. It doesn't have to be the end of who you were, Jack. It can be a beginning. As waves of hope and fear cascaded through me, I could visualize the shape of my future, an unknown culmination of paths, burdens, freedom, and agency. Did I dare to forge ahead into uncharted territory, to embrace a potential I had never allowed myself to see? With newfound resolve, I locked eyes with Emily, feeling as if I stood at the precipice of a transformative leap. I had spent years teaching my students the tenacity of inquiry and the strength found in curiosity, so why should I shy away now? Then, if I must know this truth, I will face it head on, I declared, steeling myself against the vulnerability that came with it. But I will also redefine it on my own terms. The room erupted subtly, a wave of muted reactions swirling through the crowd, yet all I could hear was the thrumming pulse of my own heartbeat, resonating with surprising clarity. No longer was it merely about the unveiling of family secrets, but an intrinsic confrontation with the very essence of who I'd become. But as I prepared to embrace this new dual existence, a lingering doubt remained. Could I truly reconcile the man I was with this breadth of identity that awaited me? Tension hung thick in the air once more, each breath laden with promise and peril. The question loomed larger than life now. If I took this plunge, what would I find waiting beneath the surface? With one resolute gaze toward Emily, I understood that the waters I was about to dive into might be deeper and far more treacherous than I had ever anticipated. The murmur of the crowd faded as I pivoted away from Emily's penetrating gaze, my heart racing in rhythm with the clock's relentless ticking in the background. Every muscle in my body tightened, as if bracing for the impact of an unseen force. I had just declared my intent to seek truths, yet here I stood, paralyzed by uncertainty. The idea of stepping into the unknown, that terrifying leap into the depths of my own family legacy, triggered both exhilaration and dread. A tumult of questions swirled in my mind, each one more insistent than the last. What did I genuinely know about my mother's past? What was the cost of pursuing my heritage? As I glanced at the assembled faces around me, fractured reflections of judgment, support, and curiosity held my attention captive. Were they eager spectators to my metamorphosis? Or would this revelation fracture our ties? As an educator, I had always preached the importance of cultivating understanding and empathy, yet now I found myself wrestling with fear and the weight of expectation. Emily moved closer, a palpable energy radiating from her as if she was the only anchor amidst my chaos. You have to understand, Jack, this is about more than just what you will find. It's about who you choose to become. Those choices are yours to make. Her voice was reassuring, but just beneath its surface lay a challenge that made me question my capacity to truly own my narrative. I took a deep breath, centering myself in an attempt to quell the storm inside. There was freedom in Emily's words, a declaration that inspired a flicker of belief. Pursuing my potential didn't simply denote a rejection of my mother's teachings, it could be about enriching them. Yet the fear of dismantling the structure I had built over the years gripped me tightly, its firm hold unyielding. This requires planning, I uttered at last, my voice steadier now. I need to figure out what parts of my past I can carry forward, and which I must confront or leave behind. The realization that I could shape my journey empowered me. I felt the contours of a map beginning to emerge in my mind. Emily nodded, her smile both encouraging and knowing. And remember, It's not just about revealing truths, you must also learn to embrace them. Past or present, they belong to you now. Her unwavering confidence illuminated a path forward, but the choice remained daunting. A mix of excitement and trepidation coursed through me. I would dive into this exploration, yet I wasn't entirely equipped for the challenges it presented. The question persisted: what truths lay hidden, and would I be prepared for them? I envisioned confronting estranged family members and unearthing deep-seated secrets that rewrote my history. After a brief interlude filled with introspection, I realized that I could start small. Maybe I would contact distant relatives, those who embodied the pieces of my family puzzle. Perhaps I could leverage the resources from my academic background to guide me on this journey. Solicit their stories, compel them to share their memories. But what if they resisted? What if they rejected my identity? My breath quickened again at the thought. Just then, a voice broke into my reverie, a concerned friend from the crowd. "Jack," he called softly, "are you okay?" It pulled me from my spiral, grounding me once more. I nodded, though self-doubt continued to gnaw at the corners of my resolve. Ultimately, I understood that accepting the unknown meant welcoming uncertainty. I turned back to Emily, gratitude flooding my voice. "Thank you for pushing me. I won't ignore this chance anymore. I'll reclaim my narrative and reshape what it means to be Jack." As I spoke, I felt the weight begin to lift, an awakening of sorts. Yet I couldn't shake the lurking presence of fear whispering of the shadows that might accompany this truth-seeking endeavor, but uncertainty became an intoxicating thrill, the tantalizing taste of potential, a promise of growth that lay languid beyond the horizon. The moment I committed to seeking my inheritance, my journey began, leading me into the labyrinth of my past I was only beginning to understand. Little did I know, the first step would unravel connections to not only newfound legacies but also unexpected adversities. Because sometimes the ghosts that haunt us most are the ones closest to home. What would I discover when I reached out to those entwined in my history? The answers were slowly approaching, and with them, challenges I hadn't anticipated. With a newfound sense of determination, I decided to embrace this journey, but it felt like striding into a storm without an umbrella. My next move had to be deliberate. Hesitation could cause things to spiral if I didn't act strategically. I opened my laptop, the screen glowing with potential, illuminating a blank document ready to be filled with questions and plans. First, I needed to compile a list of relatives. I could start with my mother's sister, Aunt Carol, who had always been the family historian of sorts. I took a deep breath, skepticism and hope battling in my chest as I typed her number into my phone. Would she share her truth with me? Just that thought was enough to set my heart racing. When the call connected, I let silence stretch just a moment too long. "Jack?" she finally asked, concern threading her words. "Aunt Carol," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I hope you're well. I wanted to talk about Mom's past and our family." Her hesitation seeped through the phone line, thickening the air around me. "What brought this on? You're not like your mother. I thought you were happy with the life you've built." Her words cut deeper than I anticipated. I had never realized how my life choices might reflect upon my mother's legacy. How many dimensions had I constructed over the years to avoid confronting uncomfortable historical truths? "I've been thinking about who I am," I confessed, "and where I come from matters to me now." After a moment of silence, Carol's voice softened. "I can share some things, but I have to warn you, the truth can be unsettling. Are you sure you want to dive into this?" "More than anything," I said, surprising myself with the conviction. The next hour unfolded like a tapestry woven with threads of longing and regret. Carol shared fragmented stories, their shadows shifting in the dim light of my now lit-up screen. Yet for every revelation, doubt clouded my path. What if these truths fractured the idealized memories I clung to? What if uncovering family secrets meant unearthing more despair than clarity? At the end of the conversation, Aunt Carol seemed to hesitate again, catching her breath as if gauging my resolve before uttering, "Be prepared, Jack. The past isn't always a gentle guide." I hung up feeling dizzy with the weight of her warnings. I was compelled to move forward, but at what cost? The following days turned into a crucible of reflection. I rearranged my life to accommodate newfound inquiries. Dinners consisted of research, poring over old family albums and clippings, each image evoking conflicting feelings of nostalgia and guilt. It was thrilling to see a younger version of my mother smiling in sepia tones, but the desire to understand the woman she truly was, hidden behind a facade of norm, compelled me onward. Weeks passed, and the impending realization loomed heavy. I had avoided communicating with my father about my mother's history. He was a vault of information, but engaging him required navigating emotional minefields, an act that felt dangerously like tearing at the seams of a well-tailored suit. One evening, I found myself standing before him, the weight of the moment straining the air between us. "Dad," I began tentatively, my hands shaking, "I want to know more about Mom. About her past." His expression shifted instantly, an indiscernible mix of surprise and concern clouded his features. This wasn't just my exploration. It felt like a death sentence to the quiet life he had built, one that revolved around carefully simplifying our family narrative. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the phone rang, the harsh sound compelling reality back into our conversation. My heart pounded. Was it fate or distraction that would determine whether I held the secrets of my family in my hands? Whatever response my father had for me hung suspended in the air like smoke, a mixture of bewildering revelations ahead or a retribution I hadn't anticipated. This path, once cleared with youthful curiosity, now seemed fraught with dangers I hadn't foreseen. The shadows from my family's past were lengthening. And I was standing at the precipice. I had initiated the exploration, but was I really ready for whatever lay ahead? The moment of reckoning for my father's South truths was tantalizingly close. Would he react with anger or openness? The question loomed large, wrapping its fingers around my chest. As I prepared to unravel the heart of my family's secrets, I couldn't help but wonder what layers remained, hidden just below the surface, and were they intertwined with my own identity? I was about to uncover the first piece of the puzzle, a phone call to my estranged cousin, whose silence had echoed louder than any words. Sitting alone in my small office, the hushed sounds from the street filtered through my partially open window, but inside, I felt as if I were in a silence of my own choosing, a silence thick with unresolved questions. A phone call to my estranged cousin loomed large in my mind, wrapping me in anxiety. As I stared at the contact named Emily, memories from my childhood flooded back, family gatherings shadowed by her discomfort, laughter mingled with whispers about her absence. What would she reveal? I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keypad, envisioning the conversation that would bridge years of silence and doubt. This was more than just an inquiry. It was a tightrope walk across a chasm that threatened to swallow everything I thought I knew about my family. I closed my eyes, attempting to steady my racing heart. "Jack," I whispered to myself, "this is about understanding. This is about you." With a shaky breath, I pressed the call button. The tone rang, that frightful yet familiar sound, a harbinger of connection. What would it yield? When Emily finally answered, I could immediately detect the imperceptible weight in her voice. "Jack, it's been a while." "Yeah, it has," I replied, attempting to infuse my voice with the ease I didn't feel. "I'm calling because I need to ask you about Mom. About us." Her breath caught, a brief silence grounding the conversation. "What do you want to know?" The directness of her tone jolted me, demanding sincerity. I needed to confront the distance, release the tension. "It's not just about her," I admitted, weighing each word carefully, "but about the family. I've been researching our history, and there are pieces of the puzzle missing. I want to understand." The pause stretched awkwardly before she spoke again, the gravity of the conversation sinking in. "I can talk. But you need to prepare yourself. There are truths that might hurt, Jack." I leaned forward, gripping the edge of my desk, feeling as if the very foundation of my identity was being tested. "I think I'm ready. I have to be." Over the next 30 minutes, repercussions of her revelations reverberated through my thoughts like ripples in water, their impact steadily intensifying. Emily shared snippets of forgotten history and untold familial mysteries, my mother's struggles, my grandfather's decisions that fragmented the family tree, and how rejection lingered in the branches. Each piece felt like a blade cutting through the veils I had wrapped around myself for so long. "Jack, you weren't just raised in a bubble of comfort," she continued, her voice shaky as if grappling with her own emotions. "There are scars. Real ones shaped by loss and abandonment. Your mother dealt with a lot. You need to talk to your father. With every word, the realization deepened within me. My pursuit of understanding was also an excavation of pain. I had become both a student and a witness to the legacies of suffering and resilience embedded in our family. As I absorbed these revelations, I also recognized the urgency of confronting my father directly. But it was more than just gathering facts now. It felt personal, almost existential. I had positioned myself strategically to unearth hidden truths, yet I stood on the precipice of decisions that could unearth greater turmoil. "Thank you, Emily," I murmured, not quite comprehending the entirety of what she had conveyed. But the weight of new knowledge began to settle into my heart, filling spaces that had always echoed with ignorance. With newfound resolve, I had to prepare for my next confrontation. My father's calm demeanor masked a world of complexity, one I was determined to breach. As I set the phone down, I was anxious yet invigorated, but also filled with a creeping dread. What if I fueled a fire intended to stay dormant? I was fully aware of the lines I was blurring between seeking answers and invoking trauma. Tomorrow would be pivotal, I realized. It would be a reckoning neither of us could escape, a confrontation long overdue, destined to reshape my understanding of family and self. Would he deny what I had uncovered, or perhaps wrestle with truths he himself had buried? Gathering courage, I thought of my plans beyond this moment. Tomorrow's meeting would not only demand the deepest honesty but would also lay bare the reflection of my own fears. I was stepping into the unknown, and that notion both terrified and exhilarated me. As I prepared mentally for the impending conversation, the unrelenting question began to pulse in my mind: would I emerge more whole or irreparably fractured? That uncertainty loomed ahead, casting its shadow over my path and leaving me on the cusp of revelation. The morning arrived with an unsettling calm, the kind that settled heavily on my chest as I moved through the familiar motions of getting ready. Coffee brewed in the background, releasing a bitter aroma that filled the air, yet its warmth did little to soothe the growing tension coursing through my veins. The clock ticked steadily, each second weighted by the knowledge that confrontation awaited. I stared blankly at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, searching for signs of a man ready to face the tempest that lay ahead. Was it truly courage that brought me here, or merely desperation? With each passing moment, self-doubt crept closer. I had spent the night tossing between memories of Emily's words and an unsettling dread of what my father might reveal. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual, each traffic light a reminder of my reluctance to continue this journey. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to stave off rising panic. I could feel the weight of unsaid things bubbling beneath the surface, ready to erupt. As I parked and stepped into the house, the familiar scent of old wood and family chaos wrapped around me like an unsettling embrace. I recalled summers spent laughing on the porch and the quieter moments where I sought consolation during childhood storms. However, that comfort now felt like an echo, distant and distorted by the revelations that had come to light. "Jack! You're here!" My mother exclaimed from the living room, her enthusiasm an unwitting facade. I could see her smile didn't reach her eyes, a heartwarming yet hollow brightness. Dad was engrossed in the morning news, unaware of the turmoil swirling in my heart. "Yeah, Mom," I responded with a nod, suppressing the urge to reveal my inner tumult. "Just needed to talk to Dad." Her brow furrowed slightly, a flash of concern dancing over her features. "Of course, dear. I'll just be in the kitchen if you need anything." The words tumbled from her mouth as she turned toward the kitchen, leaving me standing in the entryway, swallowed by an oppressive silence that loomed large between us. The next few moments felt unreal. The world outside continued to move, yet here I stood, tangled in a web of uncertainties. Why Father glanced up from the TV, the usual calm of his presence instantly replaced by an inquisitiveness that pierced through my defenses. "Hey, Jack. Everything all right?" His voice was steady, but there was an undercurrent of caution, as if he sensed the approaching storm in my tone. My mind raced, grappling with the myriad questions and emotions swirling within. This was it. No turning back. "Can we talk?" I finally managed, struggling to mask the tremor in my voice. The subtle tension shifted as I followed him to the backyard where sunlight filtered unfettered through the trees, casting long shadows on the patio that felt far too warm for my current state of mind. I felt overexposed, standing on the precipice of revelations I was yet to articulate. "Jack, what's the matter?" he inquired softly, as he took a seat across from me at the weathered patio table. I leaned forward, grappling with the whirlwind of emotions that surged through me. This was not just a conversation, it was a revealing of layers, of years that had created unbridgeable gaps. "There are things I need to know about Mom. About us. Emily told me some things." As each word slithered out, I could see his demeanor falter, flickers of conflicting emotions playing across his face. With each revelation I contemplated sharing, I felt the weight of my childhood perception warping into complexity. "You need to understand, Jack," he started, his voice dropping lower as if sharing a deeply held secret. "There are things from the past that aren't easy to unravel. Some truths might hurt." The air thickened as I searched his face, desperate for clarity. I had expected this. The cushioning of denial was fading, revealing the bare nerves surrounding our family's history. Each heartbeat echoed the urgency of my need to understand. At that moment, I realized I stood on the edge of something monumental. Would I find solace, or would the uncovering of family secrets tear apart what little remained? There was no turning back now, and I had to decide whether to plunge into the darkness of these revelations or retreat into ignorance. "Dad," I took a breath, steeling myself, "what are you hiding?" The question hung heavily in the air, a vibrant note of tension awaiting a response, ready to shatter the fragile facade we had kept for years. And as I awaited his answer, the shadows of the past swirled ominously around us, igniting a latent firestorm of revelations that could irrevocably alter our fragile family bond. What lay beneath his composed exterior? Would this confrontation solidify the bond of understanding, or would it ignite even deeper rifts? His lips tightened, as if the answer demanded unyielding restraint. I could see him floundering, the practiced calm of a devoted father cracking under the pressure of unspoken truths. It wasn't the answers I feared, but the fallout that followed them. The quiet breeze rustled the leaves above us, a reminder of life marching on, unmoved by our small human dramas. "Jack," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are things that I thought were buried long ago. But there's no easy way to say this." His words hung, palpable in the warm air. I leaned closer, aching to bridge the chasm of our muted communication. At that moment, the backyard around us transformed into a stage, the setting sun casting an orange glow that felt far too bright for the shadows of betrayal lurking in our exchange. "You're right. There are things I've kept from you. Not because I wanted to, but because I thought I was protecting you." The vulnerability in his eyes shocked me. He was admitting failure in a role he had played all my life. I'd never seen my father wrestle with regret before. It was as though he was a different man, one hiding behind layers I had never sought to peel back until now. "Mom is not who you think she is," he continued. "And neither am I." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "What do you mean?" I asked, the words escaping me in a rush, as if I could somehow force understanding into clarity. "Your mother, she wasn't always the woman you saw, the woman who nurtured you. She had ambitions, dreams that were crushed along the way. And that's intertwined with my own choices, with our history." The enormity of his revelation left me spinning. I had always viewed my parents against a canvas painted with idealism. To challenge that vision was more than jarring, it felt like facing an avalanche. "What did you do?" I asked, every syllable trembling with betrayal. "We both made choices," he replied, his voice gaining strength. "I chose stability, and she chose." He hesitated, breaking eye contact as if the truth lay too heavy to bear. I could feel dread creeping in, capturing the wayward hopes I instinctively harbored. "What did you mean when you said some truths might hurt?" He looked away, the weight of revelation settling painfully between us. "In my past, I've made mistakes. They almost cost me everything. We lost parts of ourselves in trying to hold the family together. And sometimes I feared the truth would fracture the whole thing anew. That's not an excuse." The words escaped me, raw and unfiltered. I had to fight to keep my voice steady. "You think I would have rather lived in a lie?" "No. That's not what I meant. The urgency in his tone only deepened the chasm. You need to understand that some secrets are kept to shield those we love, not to hurt them. My heart raced as I struggled to process his perspective. This was the first time I had seen him grappling with something so fundamentally personal, unveiling his own duality. But his reluctance still felt like a betrayal. Hadn't he robbed me of my right to know who I was, who we were? How can I trust you? The words fell from my lips, drenched in pent-up emotion. Silence stretched. I realized trust was an intricate tapestry, one that might take years of dialogues like this to weave anew. But I yearned for understanding, even if it came at a devastating cost. In the stillness, a thought flickered in my mind. My journey ahead was not just about learning the truths of my parents' lives but unraveling the tangle of my own identity lost within those shadows. Tell me everything, I said, the words carrying a weight of their own. Everything you should have told me long ago. As his eyes locked onto mine, the gravity of our connection transformed. This was not merely about unearthing family secrets, it was about personal growth, an agonizing yet necessary evolution that lay ahead. And as he opened his mouth to finally reveal the thorny branches of our family history, I sensed that we stood at the brink of a reckoning far beyond old grievances. What new truths would he confess, and how would they reshape my reality? The air seemed heavier as I braced myself for the storm of revelations brewing between me and my father. He took a deep breath, exhaling slowly as if trying to gather the fragmented pieces of his stories. The setting sun cast long shadows across the yard, highlighting just how vulnerable we both felt. I could hear my heart pounding, a silent metronome beating away the seconds before everything changed. Your mother, he finally began, had aspirations that the world never got to see. She wanted to be an artist, travel, experience life far beyond this small town. And she had every right to chase those dreams. He halted, glancing away as if the truth physically pained him. When I proposed, she was different. Her spirit was alive, her eyes held a fire. But slowly, as we became entrenched in our lives, that spark dimmed. I didn't see it until it was too late. His voice trembled under the weight of regret, and I struggled to keep my composure. I had never thought of my mother as someone living in the shadows of unfulfilled potential. That image painted a new outline of who she was, one that didn't fit the mother I cherished. I had adored her, so how could she have hidden this part of herself from me? And I did nothing to help, my father pressed on. I thought I was doing right by her, by providing stability. But stability crushed her dreams. I forced us into a life that barred her from who she really was. I felt a chill prickle my skin at the realization that my father's good intentions could translate into a lineage of hidden struggles. They had adopted roles to fulfill societal expectations, yet those masks concealed their true selves. What had they sacrificed, and who had they become in the process? Do you realize how much I've missed? I asked, feeling the edges of resentment bubble to the surface. I had a right to know this, but you chose to hide it. Why? To protect me from what? Your failures? His expression shifted. Not just failures, Jack. Those choices weren't solely mine. Your mother's frustrations began to build, and resentment took root. I should have been more vigilant, more conscious of the woman I married. I thought in building a family, I was preserving her truth. Instead, I buried it deeper. The clarity in my father's admission was almost suffocating. It mirrored the struggles I faced in my own life, both personal and professional. Would I also trade my dreams for the mundane? I was on the brink of starting a career I had only half committed to while I feared becoming a mere shadow of myself. Dad, it's hard for me to swallow this, I said, forcing myself to meet his gaze. You talk about your choices. What about mine? Am I destined to repeat a legacy of silence? That question hung between us like a shifting tide, and his silence spoke volumes. I felt the urgent need to differentiate myself from the narrative he was weaving. What does all of this mean for me? It means you have the chance to face this cycle head-on, he replied, each word imbued with a newfound fervor. You can choose a different path. Use your voice, son. Don't settle. Find your own truth, unafraid of judgment or fallout. His eyes, once clouded with doubt, now flashed with determination. I wanted to believe in that fire, yet uncertainty gnawed at my resolve. Could I embrace that promise of authenticity? Or would I slip back into the comfort of complacency, oblivious to my own aspirations? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world into twilight, I recognized that my journey was deeper than unearthing family secrets. It was about reflection, not just on my parents but on myself, a quest to understand what I truly sought. And with that realization, a new question ignited within me: what steps would I take to ensure I did not become a version of my father? What tangible actions lay ahead for me to claim my unfiltered identity? Something was brewing inside, an inflection point waiting to explode, ready to propel me forward. With my heart pounding and the air thick with potential, I realized the next chapter of my life was just beginning, and it might require a direct confrontation with the ghosts of my family's past. The cost felt overwhelming, yet I craved clarity. It was time to discover who I was meant to be, if only I could push through the depths of fear and shame lying in wait. Jack took a deep breath, the weight of his father's confession hanging heavily in the air. This pivotal moment demanded clarity and internal resolution that would redefine not only the shadowed history of his parents but also his journey ahead. He felt the tumult of emotions swell within him, and as he struggled to organize his thoughts, he realized that this was his opportunity to carve a new trajectory, one that was distinctly his own. "I can't keep living like this, caught between the past and the future," Jack finally articulated, grounding himself with the conviction he had long admired in his students. "I need to forge my own identity, one that doesn't just echo the mistakes of the past." His father nodded, the lines of regret etched deeply on his face reflecting the understanding that the life he had constructed came at a cost of silence. But Jack felt the stirrings of determination rise within him, a longing to define his legacy through authenticity. There would be no more walls built on half-truths. It was time to create something real. "I want to teach," Jack continued, his voice steady with newfound conviction. "But not just in a classroom. I want to empower my students to confront their own truths. I was so afraid of exploring my identity, the identity my mother kept hidden. But if I stand stagnant, I lose my right to inspire others." The realization flowed through him, solidifying his resolve. It was a profound moment of growth. Jack recognized that resonating change could only come from genuine self-exploration. "I may not follow a traditional path," he shared with a daunting sense of freedom in his heart, "but I refuse to let my past define me or hold me prisoner to expectations. It's not just about discovering family legacies, it's about finding my voice amidst it all." His father met Jack's gaze, surprised by the clarity radiating from the son he had known as a quiet provider. Jack could see that recognition begin to flicker with admiration. They were two individuals at a crossroads, now united in their shared confrontation of identity. In that moment, the silence between them felt like a bridge, a passageway connecting past regrets with future possibilities. Jack resolved to write a narrative that combined the lessons of resilience learned from his hard-working mother, alongside the courage to explore his lineage without fear of judgment. He would not abandon his roots, but instead, he would grow from their complexities. As he took several steps back from the brink of his father's truth, Jack began to contemplate the external manifestations of his internal clarity. What good were thoughts without action? He would seek a community of educators who shared his vision, a collective that valued inquiry, authenticity, and transformation. He would engage with the stories of those around him, fostering an environment where students felt secure enough to discover and proclaim their own narratives. The idea filled him with excitement. "I'll establish a program," he declared, the plan taking shape in his mind. A mentorship initiative aimed at helping young minds navigate their own histories while pursuing their passions. Perhaps even create a podcast to explore these stories of self-discovery, bridging generations in a way that education alone cannot. Enthusiasm surged within him. He was proving something vital, that personal growth could raise the world around him. His father, watching closely, caught the spark igniting in Jack, a fire that mirrored the very spirit he had seen dim in his mother all those years ago. For the first time, Jack's journey felt like an affirmative step, not just for himself but as homage to his mother's yearning for authenticity, an echo of the dreams she had surrendered for stability. "Jack," his father spoke softly, pride rebuilding the foundations of their relationship. "That's a noble idea. Using your voice to foster growth and exploration, it almost feels like she would approve." A shared understanding began to thread through them, a newfound connection being forged from the ashes of long-buried truths. With each passing moment, Jack felt his confidence solidify. He had navigated the tumultuous waters of family secrets only to emerge renewed, ready to embrace uncertainty with open arms. Every lingering doubt began to dissipate. His accomplishments would redefine his identity, granting him solid footing based on authenticity and passion. "No more shadows," Jack said firmly as they settled into understanding. "I choose to walk in the light of my truth." In that definitive moment, Jack Thompson reclaimed his narrative. He would build a life rich with inquiry and resonance, giving voice to his journey while honoring his roots. Accomplishing this not only fulfilled his professional aspirations, it also brought them closer as a family, bridging the gap created by silence. They might not have all the answers yet, but they had each other. Jack left his father's side with determination bolstered by love and understanding. He was ready to embark on this new chapter and narrative in which he would not only confront the legacy of his lineage but redefine it. That call to action resonated not only as a promise to himself but as a profound pledge. Armed with this insight, he would empower others to seek their own truth. The road ahead would require vulnerability and strength, and while Jack knew challenges awaited, he felt unwavering confidence in his capacity to overcome that. If you've been inspired by Jack's incredible journey, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for exclusive emotional stories that matter. Leave a like now to help us grow and reach more hearts. Comment your thoughts and theories about Jack's transformation. Your reflections are what push us to create. And please, share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to find their own path to authenticity. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful message.